Em, can you believe we started Interview Boss in 2021?
Not really. It's insane. That's a lot of episodes and a lot of hours of talking.
Oh my gosh, it is. And if you're scrolling through all of our episodes, you might scroll straight past something that you really, really needed.
Yes, we're always getting messages from people asking us to do an episode on something, and I'm like, we already have.
So we've put together playlists to help you find the episodes that are exactly what you need, suited to your situation.
They're all categorized. If you're applying for jobs, we have episodes about resumes, cover letters, job ads. If you've been offered your dream job, we have episodes on resigning, exit interviews, and how to impress at your new company.
And we even have a very special playlist that's very popular for if you have an interview coming up immediately and you need just our most recommended hard-hitting episodes between now and then.
For all our last-minute listeners. It's all there for you. You can browse by category and check out all the playlists at interviewboss.com.au/podcast.
It kind of proves to me, I guess, that it's not that you don't have the words. You do have the words.
You don't have the confidence.
Or the permission, or maybe the freedom to feel like it's okay.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Interview Boss. My name is Emma. I'm a radio journalist who's teamed up with my sister Sarah to give you advice, inspiration and support when you're looking for that new job. Sarah is a HR and recruitment top doggy, and together we're here to give you all the tips, tricks and insider knowledge to help you excel in your career.
Oh, mixing it up again today, Em. Who are we giving a big fat Interview Boss shout out to?
To Martina from Germany, who bought us 5 coffees. I loved this message.
All the way from Germany. Martina, I haven't even been.
Yeah, bring us over to you. She said, I quit my PhD in economics a couple of months ago after 2 years of feeling anxious, stuck in the same place and just miserable. Having only 1 year of work experience prior to starting the PhD, the relief of leaving academia was quickly replaced by absolute panic about my career prospects.
Oh.
I felt like I wasted the previous years and regressed both in terms of motivation and abilities. After a few meltdowns on my friend Rachel's couch, she sounds like a real one, she recommended I listen to your podcast.
Rachel's the best.
We love her even more. She thought it would help me structure my job search and give me ideas on how to change the narrative around my experience to become an attractive candidate of the job market. Just a few episodes in, my confidence soared. Working on my best bits, I realized I grew and learned so much in the years I spent in research. Using your guidance, I found a way to showcase both my technical and soft skills and talk about my prior experience in a way that's appreciated in the private sector. Even more helpful were your tips on how to communicate honestly and convincingly about the desire to switch careers. It's such a relief when you feel like you don't have to make up some elaborate lie or dance around it, or you can honestly just say, yep, I was sick of it and now I'm keen to do this and really excited. Now, 4 months after leaving my previous position, I got the perfect job in an energy consultancy where I'll be working on energy transformation and decarbonisation in Eastern Europe.
That sounds so cool.
Isn't it? World leading renewable industry over here. I'm so happy my friend pointed me out to your podcast. I wouldn't have managed without your wisdom and support. I'm so thankful to you and will not stop promoting the podcast to literally every person who as much as thinks about switching jobs. You're doing such an awesome job. Cheers and so many thanks. Martina, P.S. I also listen to your podcast so much that my accent apparently changed and now I get regularly asked if I used to live in Australia. Wow, indoctrination at its finest.
I
want to
love
know
that so much.
I'll have to reply to her and I want to know, what parts are you picking up? Are you chewing on your nose? Are you saying like no?
No.
Or are you shortening
We don't even
things?
sound
Are
like
you
that
saying,
though. We've got like
I think we do to them.
Yeah, but well, sure. But I also do think we have, what's that accent called where it's like you just enunciate better or whatever?
We're posh versions.
Yeah. Because I've had people say before, you don't have that strong of an accent. Like I can understand you really well. Like it's not getting in the way of understanding. Whereas there's plenty of Australians who even I talk to and I'm like, oh, have you seen Anyone But You, that new rom-com?
Yes.
Loved it. Really recommend. It's everything a rom-com should be. It was funny, a little bit heartwarming, but my God, those Australian accents really grinded my gears.
Yeah, terrible.
Who ever would sound like that? Like, I think that the guy was like, oh, okay, he's, the Crocodile Dundee wannabe or whatever. But the Aussie girl, I'm like, ew, who would speak like that? It's just so...
They didn't do us justice.
No, that was very rude. This is what real Australians sound like. And also maybe Martina is what Australians sound like as well.
And I'm a journalist. I have to enunciate. So that's why I don't sound like a yobbo.
Yeah. I think it's called like a transatlantic accent. I don't understand all of that.
Ooh, that sounds majestic.
I think it's something to do with like being on the radio and like they had to enunciate because... I don't know, something. There's a history of it. I'm fascinated by that stuff. I saw it on TikTok. So congratulations, Martina. That's amazing. And I love that you quit your PhD. That's incredible. Like if it's not working, don't stick with it. That would have been 2 more years at least to finish that.
Gross.
And if you were miserable, it's not worth it. Life's too short to just slave away to just get those 2 little letters at the beginning of your name. It's not worth it. And now she's doing amazing, awesome research. So if you need some help like Martina, you can check out all of the help that we can give you a little bit more personally than a podcast. We do still have one-on-one coaching sessions, but we also have interview coaching on demand with the Interview Academy. So go and check out all about that, interviewboss.com.au/coaching, and you can compare the two and work out which one's best for you.
I'm excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking about how to address the elephant in the room.
We are.
We get questions all the time, slightly different scenarios, but it's like, help. How do I talk about X, this situation, getting fired, or I've got this health issue, or have been a stay-at-home mum for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. And although obviously it changes slightly, we're always like, you just say it.
Yeah. My favorite part about those messages is that they always explain it to us so that we have context of like why it's so hard for them to talk about. And they say, Emma and Sarah, help. I'm applying for jobs and I've got an interview coming up, but here's the situation.
They perfectly summarize their situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, will you just say literally that message, like copy and paste that into your notebook and just say exactly what you told me?
They literally, it's the irony that they have managed to sum it up in the most perfect, coherent way that doesn't sound bad, or it just sounds honest and, positive and lovely.
Yeah.
And they're so stressed about it. So
yeah,
we want to talk about it.
It kind of proves to me, I guess, that it's not that you don't have the words. You do have the words.
You don't have the confidence.
Or the permission, or maybe the freedom to feel like it's okay, or you're trying to like make it sound good or sound better or sound different than what it really is.
But sometimes things just are the way they are and you can't package it up in any better way.
Yeah, exactly.
Life is not perfect.
I'm pretty sure we have a whole episode about talking about the elephant in the room. We'll link it below if we do.
We have a whole episode on how to talk about being fired.
Yes, we do. And we kind of talk about how a lot of people in their career story, so they're like, tell me about yourself kind of answer, they are trying to avoid something. And so therefore they kind of twist themselves in knots to kind of avoid and explain and get around this thing that they don't want to talk about. And their story kind of doesn't make sense without it. And so therefore it feels like you're hiding something and all these other things. In these situations, these people aren't necessarily hiding something. They're just like, I don't know how to talk about it. And I think that's where maybe the hiding it comes from, because they don't know how to talk about it and so they don't. So I think I've gotten better at explaining this the more times that we've talked about it here in coaching sessions and in the course as well. And what I think is the litmus test for if you need to talk about it or not is this. If you can tell your story and it makes perfect sense without mentioning anything about it, and it's not going to impact your references or why you're starting, or you don't need it to explain anything, then you could just skip it if you wanted to.
For example, maybe you were not loving a job and then you had a parent or a loved one die and you were really grief stricken, and that made you be like, oh, I'm going to quit. You took a couple months off and then got another job, but that's a really small window, and in the scheme of it, nothing catastrophic has happened. You might not need to bring that. You don't need to bring that up because it's like there's not a big gaping hole or a missing piece.
Yes, exactly. And imagining that was in the past, it's like you've already had another job since then. You don't need to mention that. You could if there was a bigger gap. Again, it's like, can you tell your story without it? Great, do it. You don't have to mention it. But if it's critical to your story making sense, you're going to probably have to talk about it in some way. And we are here to answer all those questions of how do I talk about insert very specific random scenario here. And for anyone who might be listening to this because you sent us a DM and we replied, linking you to this episode, well, welcome. Hello.
Thanks for being our inspiration.
I know that you probably wanted a much more personalized answer. We can't always give super personalized answers, but I promise you this is basically what we would come back to you with. So we're going to do some role plays. We're going to get practical. I feel like our listeners love this stuff when we actually show them.
They do. We're going to help you reclaim the elephant in the room. So we had someone reach out saying their scenario was they left their career because they were really struggling after being diagnosed with endometriosis, which we know can be so crippling and debilitating. So they did some casual work in the meantime to kind of tide them over. They're due for surgery and they're hoping to get back to the career. So they're feeling hopeful, want to get back to things. How do you address that you've, had this jarring career change and then went casual and then now you're back here?
Yeah, totally. And I guess I understand where this one's coming from because it's like, I don't know if I should really talk about it. Because I guess when it comes to chronic illnesses or injuries or mental health conditions or anything like that that feels a little bit sensitive, like maybe they have a stigma and kind of use this against me, I completely understand why you might not want to fully disclose. But in this case, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to tell your story without mentioning something. You know what I mean? Because it's like you kind of can't explain why you left that role and went casual for a little while. And you also kind of can't explain why you're coming back now without saying something. Like it's going to be very hard for you to not mention anything to do with anything. What else would you say? You'd have to make something up and then it would sound fake and whatever. So here's what I would do if this was me. Here's how that might sound. In 2022, I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and over the next year, I really had to focus on my health and make the decision to switch to casual work so that I could work around my symptoms and the health appointments that I was having. I've recently had surgery and I'm in a much better place and I'm ready to prioritize my career again.
Oh, sounds great. So succinct.
And that's the thing. You don't have to tell them your whole life story about it. About exactly what it is. You don't have to explain what it is.
They don't need the details.
Yeah. And I flirted with the idea of saying I had a health condition and blah, blah, blah. But I think pick your battles on when you say health condition or when you name it. I sometimes think it's better to name it in certain situations. That's going to be up to everyone's individual judgment. I feel like with a little bit more awareness of what endometriosis is, the positive thing about talking about it is that it doesn't mean that you are unable to lift or unable to, do you know what I mean? It doesn't have these physical things that they might be really worried about. Are you going to be able to do this job? And also it's probably helpful if they know about it because it's likely to have symptoms in the future. So yeah.
What do you mean by it does have very physical symptoms though?
Well, what I mean by I broke my back and don't worry, I'm fine. You're but are you fine? One of the reasons I think it helps is because particularly for endometriosis, where she's talking about she's had surgery, you're able to explain the surgery is the reason that I'm now in a different place. Something has genuinely changed. Because otherwise I think it's also challenging to go, hey, this health condition that I still have was the reason I literally stopped work, but don't worry, it's okay now.
Well, that's what I was just going to say on the note of say chronic health conditions or something that flares up now and then. And at that time you might be right, but it could very well happen in the future. How do you navigate talking about that without wanting to be discriminated against because they don't want to go, oh, geez, I don't want to hire them. They might be out every 6 weeks. In that case, do you hold back?
Well, this is where there's judgment required, obviously, from our listeners. That is absolutely a real thing. There is absolutely discrimination out there about health conditions. So I can't say, oh, it's fine, just mention it. But the problem is, let's say you had a chronic health condition that you didn't want to disclose because you were concerned about being discriminated against. If this was the case and you had had all this time off and then now you were coming back in, what are you then going to say about that? That's why I said at the beginning, if there's the option to not talk about it and you don't want to talk about it, then just don't mention it at all. But if it's critical to them understanding what the hell is going on in your life, why you've gone casual and now you're coming back in, you're going to have to make something else up in its place. And that trade-off is, I think, what people have to weigh up to decide, is it worth it to say it so that I can at least explain and talk about, hey, this is now under control. I've got some new treatment. I've got XYZ. I've got a management plan. I've got whatever, or that's why I'm looking for hybrid work or whatever it is. There would be a reason.
Yeah, then I guess you run the risk, if you haven't disclosed it, that you get into a really rigid workforce where there's no time or flexibility to take time off or, duck out to appointments. Like, you know what I mean? If that's a chronic thing, that's a big part of your life. So you kind of need a workplace that's going to somewhat accommodate that. So if you haven't mentioned it, I guess that's the other, judgment is definitely required, but
it is. And I hate that I can't say, oh, disclose it because don't worry, it's illegal for them to use it against you. Well, obviously it is, but how are you going to ever prove that they used it against you? That's the impossible part. You can't. And so you're really in a not a very strong position as a job seeker. But I took this questioner as this was their scenario. They were willing to kind of talk about it. How do I do that? Great. Just say it. Like the example we gave a second ago was like 2 sentences and then move on. Like you've got all this other stuff to talk about. Like talk about that. Make that the focus.
Yeah, that's the least interesting thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I get that this is tough. And if anyone else has got other thoughts on their lived experience of chronic conditions, other things that they might be worried about disclosing, don't they talk about it? How do you do it? Let us know. I'd love your opinion. But I think the takeaway from this episode is like, put it in a couple of sentences, say it and move on. That's kind of what we're talking about. If you don't want to talk about it, great. Don't listen to this episode.
Interview Academy might be the perfect thing you're looking for. Interview Academy is a course Sarah has been working on after delivering hundreds of interview coaching sessions and getting incredible results.
But unfortunately, I'm only one gal living in an Aussie time zone who works a day job, and all of that mean I can't help everyone one-on-one, which drove me crazy.
So for over a year, Sarah's been working on turning all of those amazing lessons into an on-demand, step-by-step interview prep course. We hold your hand through the entire thing.
And you can do it at home in your own time and get instant access right now. Check it out at interviewboss.com.au/interview-academy. The link is in the show notes.
Now, this next one, I think, is the easiest one out there, but our lovely listener seemed very stressed and worried about it. She said that I've moved around a fair bit because my partner's in the military, and so I'm moving states and I'm applying for jobs, but how do I explain that I've left this place that I really loved and I've moved around a fair bit? And I was just like, that's the easiest one. You get to blame your partner. You get to blame your damn partner. You're like, I'm a military wife. That's just how it is. And also, assuming that she's in the US, that's what it sounds like military husband, partners, wives is so ingrained in their culture, they would probably salute you for it and be like, wow, noble. Like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, why are we trying to hide from this?
Some stores give military partners discounts, don't they? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah. You get to blame the partner. It's the best. It's nothing to do with you. It's like, look, it's out of my control. I think twist it to your advantage, which has made you super easygoing, resilient. You're good at taking on new things and adapting to new environments. Like, you're a go-getter.
You've had to start again a couple of times and you've quickly gotten up to speed and you've been able to do XYZ. Totally. I would absolutely make that a part of your story. And it's such a non-issue, that one, because it's just like, it's kind of like saying, oh, that was a contract role. It's like, oh, great, move on. Like, such an easy way.
Yeah, they're not going to dwell on it.
Yeah. The other thing I thought when I looked at this one was stick that in your cover letter. That's definitely a great one to mention in your cover letter, because what I'd be worried about if that was me is like, sure, I can easily explain that in the interview, but how am I going to make sure that I get an interview and they don't think that I've just jumped around all the time? So I would put it in your cover letter. You could even maybe creatively add it into your resume somehow, maybe in your profile section or something. Like, I've worked in several states as a military spouse or whatever. I would also add in, I had someone do this in an interview with me once and say, I've moved around with my partner. I've lived here and here and here. And so, I've had to leave these roles after a couple of years after his posting finished and we moved to the next place. But he's now guaranteed me, or the military's now guaranteed us, that we're going to spend XYZ amount of time in this place now. So I'm here, we're settled, like I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, if you have any of that intel, share that.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that is the case. Or maybe you've said, I'm not moving next time. You can, like, we're going to stop here with our family, for example, and like they're going to go if they have to go to another place. If there's any detail around that, put that in there too. That just, it takes it up to the next level.
I've had enough of his shit and he's going on his own. No.
I've made it clear to him that I will not be coming on the next posting. So I'm free and available permanently in this city.
I love it.
I've said to the military that they're going to have a divorce on their hands to deal with if they move him again.
What about if someone's marriage has broken down and they're juggling life now as a single parent?
Well, I'm going to throw this to you, Em. I'm going to make you pretend. Let's do some acting. Step into those shoes. How would you weave this into your story?
Well, is this my current situation?
Right now.
I'd just be like, yeah, so I was doing X job that was going really well, but I actually had a marriage breakdown and I'm now juggling kids as a single parent. So I'm really looking for something more flexible and, you know, something that will give me more time with my kids. And I thought that this role was great.
Look, it works. It really works. And you just literally kind of said word for word what the truth was. I probably would switch up the word marriage relationship breakdown. I'd be like, my partner and I separated, my husband and I separated, like we went through a separation. Don't make it sound dramatic. They don't need to know if it was a bad divorce or not. And then juggling kids, like again, I would be like, we've gone through a separation. And so now my schedule means that I've got the kids and I'm doing pickups and drop-offs throughout the week. So I'm really looking for a part-time role that allows me to be flexible around that. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd give a little bit more detail around, like, what does that mean? When you say juggling kids, does it mean like I've got 3 newborns or?
Well, Sarah, these are imaginary children and I am not sure what the situation is.
And also you don't know how many of them there are because the kids don't exist. Yeah, exactly.
I don't have offspring.
You normally have so much more imagination. It's too late for Emma. She's ready for bed.
Okay. We also get people that say all the time, but I've never done this job before, or I don't have any skills in this job, but I've got an interview and I've got the second interview and I'm stressed. And like this one, I don't want to say angers me, but I'm like, oh my God. Firstly, you've got an interview for a reason and it's about transferable skills. You don't have to have done the exact job before. Otherwise, how would anyone ever move around and get new jobs? You can't have done the exact job that you want to go for. It's like, it doesn't make sense. But for some reason, people have this entrenched belief that I haven't done that exact job before. And this girl wrote in, she said, I've got an interview next Thursday. It's the second with the company. I've been told that it'll be kind of a panel interview. I'm so nervous, as in the past I've sort of bombed it and gone blank. The first chat I had with them was simple and brief, but I kind of got the feeling that maybe she was concerned that I, you know, didn't have heaps of experience, and I got the vibe she was maybe trying to psych me out of the job. But I felt like I did pretty good at, you know, expressing my interest. And again, this is where people sum it up perfectly to us and go, how do I tell them that? I just want them to know that I'm here to learn and take on the new responsibilities and training, and that my lack of experience shouldn't stop me from having a good crack. And I'm like, that is literally what you can say. Anyway, so she's going from hospo to like real estate, like property manager. And she said, I have no computer skills or any admin training, so I'm freaking out if they ask a really hard-hitting question. And I actually had to take a deep breath before I sent this, because I was like, oh my God.
Emma will not put up with you underselling yourself. She is not going to let you get away with that.
No. And I wrote back a little harsh. I was like, girl, you need to back yourself. And I said, firstly, panel interviews can be intimidating, but they're no different to a one-on-one. If you haven't already, I'm going to recommend some episodes. I sent her what to expect from a second.
So many. You sent her
did.
Like heaps.
I'm like, here's your homework. I sent her what to expect in a second round interview, panel interviews. I sent her how to recover in an interview when your mind goes blank, because she mentioned that. And I sent her one about transferable skills. And then I said, You explained the situation perfectly. That's all you have to say. While I don't have experience in this exact role before, I believe my experience with XYZ in the hospitality industry will help me to do XYZ here. And just brainstorming off the top of my head, okay, hospitality is customer service. Property management is customer service. You're managing tenants.
Oh my gosh. Literally, if I was hiring a property manager job, I would absolutely look at people with hospitality backgrounds. I'd be like, great, you know how to work hard, you know how to deal with all different types of people, you're friendly, you're happy to work weekends and shifts and stuff because property managers have to do that. Whereas someone coming from reception, I would be less likely to consider actually because they haven't dealt with that.
They're dealing with like the in-house chefs being like, go, 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 put that out there. And then the customers like going out between them and between landlords and tenants. Like my brain is exploding of all the ways that this is perfect.
Which is probably why she got the interview, by the way.
Exactly. And I said, it's all about transferable skills, blah, blah, blah. And then I followed it up and said, also, I highly doubt as a woman in the 21st century, you have no computer or admin skills. I just had a look at your profile and get this. She owns a successful charcuterie board business. An Instagram all decked out with the beautiful marketing, the beautiful social media posts, engagement, like a little bit about me. I'm like,
wow.
You were acting like you don't know how to use a phone. Like if you've ever made a doctor's appointment and if you have social media, you have admin skills.
You've got computer skills.
You've got computer skills. Do you know how to open Word? Yeah, like
exactly.
Anyway, and she was hyped to read that.
And honestly, like I know the energy that you were in when you wrote it. It doesn't sound like that. You sound really lovely in the message because it's like my favorite bit was I highly doubt as a woman in the 21st century you have no computer or admin skills.
I would have
just love that. Of like you're lying to me.
Yes, I would have been fine if she was like I don't have extensive or I've never done a formal course in admin. But she said I have no computer or admin skills. I'm like, okay. Be for real. Be for real. You're lying. Anyway, so yeah, we kind of just touched on it, but all you have to say is, you know, while I haven't done this specific role before, I believe, and then give specific skills that will work, like my skills in XYZ would allow me to do really well in these particular tasks here. Like link how what you've got will work and then follow it up with like, I'm really eager to learn and, you know, want to continue a career.
And I think what I see people do a lot with this, when they're telling their career story, they go into what you just talked about of like, here's my transferable skills, but they skip out why they want to make the move. That's so critical in your career story, in your tell me about yourself. I want to know, particularly for property management, it's a really high turnover industry, which is maybe why she was trying to talk you out of it. It's a tough gig. So they want to know why you want to do the role. That's almost just as important as the skills that you have is like, why do you want to be here? Because if it's not a good reason, you'll probably leave because it wasn't what you expected. If it's like, oh, I want to sit in air conditioning because I'm sick of working in a hot whatever, it's like, oh, okay, that's not going to be enough. Whereas if it's, I'm done with hospitality. I really want to move into a role that I can progress into. I'd love to eventually move into doing my real estate qualification, whatever. Like, great. Talk about all the reasons why you actually want this role as well. They care about that.
For sure. Now, the age-old dilemma. I was fired from my last job.
Mm-hmm. We have an episode about this, which you can go and have a look at. But it's all about reflecting on it, taking a little bit of ownership and explaining it. So if our listeners haven't heard, there's an episode where I go through my full career story and I was actually fired. My probation failed in my pretty much very first job out of uni and it was horrific and I cried a lot. It was awful.
I don't remember this. I don't think I had entered consciousness yet.
Yes, you had.
No, how old would you have been then?
22 or something?
I was 14, as if I remember that.
Yeah, but still, like you entered consciousness. Ridiculous. Anyway, it was my first job after uni and I'm just going to talk about now how I would explain that if I was going for an interview, and probably what I did say actually. So I recently finished up my role at Hayes. I really learned a lot. I loved their training and the things that I learned about recruitment, but unfortunately the sales elements of the role really weren't a good fit for me. And honestly, I didn't do very well at it. So what I'm really looking for now is to do some of those elements of recruitment that I really liked, but inside an internal function rather than working for an agency. And that's why I was interested in this role.
Perfect. So you didn't actually say you were fired, you sneaky devil.
Oh, Did I just say I finished up?
You said I've finished
Yeah, fair
up.
enough. But I did also say I wasn't very good at it. So yeah, you could definitely, I was unconscious. You can innuendo like me, but you can also just say I was let go from that role or that role ended because I wasn't doing very well in it. Like as long as you're not completely covering it up, like I resigned and completely faking it, it's okay to give a little bit of innuendo. But I think you want to hear ownership there of like, what have you learnt? What did you do wrong?
Following it up, if you do say, yeah, I was let go, whatever, put in a bit about yourself, not like they said whatever, be like, and honestly, I was relieved because it just wasn't working and I didn't like this. Like put it back to you, not like, you know, they told me I sucked at it and blah. Put it to you of like a learning moment. And what that made me realize was actually it's this part of the industry that I love and want to try more.
Yeah. Or like, for example, I wasn't performing very well in that role. And genuinely, I think it's because of the way that they wanted us to learn. I really like a lot more support and I was really thrown in the deep end there. So I really learnt that I need an environment where I've got someone to learn from day to day. And that's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Like you want to own something of like, what was it? And I am such a strong believer. And I think most people are really that one person's star employee is another person's underperformer. I've seen it happen. It's wild. The exact same person, one manager thinks they're amazing, they're the best in the team. Another manager comes in, they don't like that person. They think someone else is the best in the team. It absolutely can happen that way. Different organizations, different roles, different managers, different priorities. It's absolutely true that when it hasn't worked out in one role, it could very much work out in the next role. You want to take some kind of meaning from it, either something that you own, something that you've learnt, something you've reflected on. How are you going to use what you went through to do something different next time?
What about a guy that says he wears multiple hats? He's been a producer, a tradie, he's ran a not-for-profit, and he also is about to move cities. He's got a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot to kind of weave into a story, but what you kind of need to do is step back and decide, right, out of all of the jobs I've ever had, I don't need to explain every single one of them. You get to choose which ones you want to talk about and which ones you just want to skip over. Maybe they're still on your resume, but they don't have to be a big part of your career story. You can say something like, oh, I've had a heap of different roles, but my background is in this. My background is as a tradie and I worked in that for X amount of years. And now what I'm more doing is this producer role. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to include all of them chronologically, step by step by step.
Maybe you group it on the one that was the longest and kind of most significant and then skip to what you're more doing now. Or maybe you start with what you've been doing the most recently, like the past couple of years, even if it was a few different things, but focus on currently now and where you want to be in your next step.
Yeah. So let me make up a fake story to like weave all those things together. I have no idea if this is true or not, but this is me trying to weave a narrative through all those things. So and this is much shorter, by the way, than what a full career story would be, but I'm showing you the narrative. So my background and what I focused on out of school was working as a carpenter, and I worked in that career for a number of different years, but I was really feeling a bit mentally unfulfilled, but I really wanted a bit more of a mental challenge. And I've always really enjoyed creating and producing music. I was in a band when I was growing up. So I left my trade role and was able to eventually go to work full time as a music producer, and have been fortunate enough to have a little bit of success in some tracks that I've put together. But my next step is I really want to make a positive difference on the world in a way that music hasn't really allowed me to. So my passion outside of work and that aligns with my values and beliefs is really in the climate change and energy space. So I'm really looking to apply my skills in that area. And that's why I was interested in this role. Like I haven't done a very good job of that because like, what is the role he's applying for? I don't know.
No, I like it. It was still busy, but it made sense. I was like, oh yeah, after school, tradie for a long time. Totally fair. Loved the tidbit of like you were in a band. I can so picture a tradie being like, I'm sick of this monotonous life on the job site, goes to like do music. Then it's cool. You've like got some awesome tracks. I think this guy actually told us that he's produced some cool like actual songs in the mainstream space. But then yeah, obviously he's done that. He's kind of peaked and now he wants to do something good, which that is so many people's career story. They do a job for ages and then go, I want to do something meaningful. Like there is nothing red flaggy about that. I'm convinced.
And in this kind of career where you've got bits and pieces all over the place, I think what you want to think about is for each thing that you want to talk about, you don't have to talk about all of them, but for each one that you do want to mention, what's the thing you're going to say as a takeaway of like, what did you learn about yourself? What skills did you develop? What did you love? What did you hate? Like pick something that you want to have as like, that's my note for that role before I move on. And so for the tradie one, it was, I wasn't intellectually stimulated enough. Okay, great. That's kind of what we learnt from that thing. You could probably add to that though. I learned a lot of project management skills. I learned to manage people. That was where I first ran a team. Like that's how you can build up your career story.
I love it. So those are some common examples, but I think the theme here is it's all interchangeable. There's a way to address any scenario that you might be stressing about by just being upfront, not giving too many details, but just, giving enough for it to make sense and not overthinking it.
Yeah. Weave it into your overall story.
If you need more help putting together your career story, we have a whole module on the step-by-step ways to craft that punchy story in our Interview Academy course. If that sounds like something that could help you, check it out on our website.
So there's 4 modules and literally a whole one of those is putting together your career story. So there's 13 different lessons and 7 or something of those are actual videos, and then there's activities and step by step. It was very hard actually. Probably this was the hardest module to create, I think, in the whole course, because it's very much like, I don't know what your career story is. So how do I break it down into steps? But I think I managed to do it quite well to say, if this is you, do this. If this is you, do this. Here's the choices you have to make. Do step 1, step 2, step 3. And then at the end, you've got this wonderful story. So if you need a lot of help with it, the Interview Academy can absolutely help with that. It was something that I really took away from my interview coaching sessions that people needed a lot of help with, and I wanted to put that in the course.
Amazing. Address the elephant in the room.
Thanks so much for listening to Interview Boss. If you like hearing the sound of our voices, hit that follow button in Apple or Spotify, or better yet, tell someone else about the show. That's how we can hit the charts so we can help even more people. For more advice, inspiration, and a supportive community, check us out on Instagram at Interview Boss.
We've been your job search besties and helped you in some way. There's a cool way you can support the show. Shout us a virtual coffee.
We get a huge kick out of reading all of your success stories. Head to buymeacoffee.com/interviewboss and shout us a cuppa.
If you keep us caffeinated, we can keep the content coming.